Hello and welcome to the Third Sector podcast, brought to you by the Third Sector editorial team. In this episode, we'll unpack why the Charity Commission has found itself in hot water with Parliament, and we'll hear from the whistleblower who believes the regulator's board has no choice but to stand down. We'll also take a look at the first key announcements from Andy Burnham's government and what they might mean for the charity sector. And we'll recap a banking outage that has left some charities unable to pay their staff. I'm your host, Emily Burt, and I am joined by Andy Ricketts.
Hello.
And Emily Harle.
Hello.
This is our monthly episode where we don't have a guest joining us. It takes the form of an editorial team meeting in which we consider a few recent stories that have raised some interesting points. And we're going to start this month with Andy. Tell us, Andy, what has been going on with the Charity Commission? It's not covering itself in glory right now.
No, and it is quite a long and protracted story that's been going on for some time and relates back to two safeguarding complaints that were made about two separate charities. And the Charity Commission looked into them, and then they were then referred to the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman, which investigated the case and criticised the Charity Commission for its handling of these cases. By late 2024 and 2025, the PHSO concluded the Commission had not sufficiently complied with these recommendations, and in March of 2025 decided to lay two special reports before Parliament about this non-compliance. Now, this triggered a whole strong response from the Charity Commission, and it decided that it wanted to bring a judicial review against the PHSO's decision to publish these two reports in Parliament. And the Commission said at the time that they thought the decision was unlawful and it could force the regulator into acting beyond its legal remit. The case was referred to the Speaker's Council to get involved. Now, the Speaker's Council is basically the lawyer that provides legal advice to the Speaker of the House of Commons, who wrote to the Charity Commission twice saying that this could trigger a contempt of Parliament and inviting the Commission to withdraw the case. But the Commission decided to continue and carried on with the legal challenge. But then the reports were subsequently laid before Parliament, which meant that the case effectively became redundant because the reports had already been published. Now, during this, the case had also been referred to the Privileges Committee, which is another group of MPs that looks into parliamentary affairs. And the Privileges Committee has recently published its report into what the Commission did. And it found that the Charity Commission committed a contempt of Parliament in trying to prevent the publication in Parliament of these reports, and said that David Holdsworth, Chief Executive of the Charity Commission, and the Commission Board should apologise to Parliament for doing this.
And they were quite strong in their wording of that, weren't they? It wasn't a particularly neutral report, I would find. It was quite unequivocal in saying the regulator is very much at fault here.
Yeah, very much so. And actually, they said in their report that David Holdsworth should apologise to Parliament for repeatedly saying that the Commission's legal action was not intended to quash the laying of the reports when that was precisely its purpose, in their view. The Commission subsequently accepted the findings of the report and I think has done the right thing straight away and says it apologises unreservedly for what it did. But the fact is, it's a very embarrassing situation for the Charity Commission to find itself in.
Have there been any similar situations with the regulator like this in the past, or is this a kind of an unprecedented place that we're in now?
Well, this Privileges Committee style of report is very unusual in itself, and certainly the Charity Commission has not been involved in anything like this as long as I can remember. I mean, the Commission has had challenges over the years, and I mean, I was thinking back to other instances where the Charity Commission's found itself in the firing line. I think of the case in 2013 of the Cup Trust, which was a charity that was effectively registered by the Charity Commission just as a massive tax avoidance vehicle and made a huge gift aid claim that was subsequently rejected. But the Commission found itself severely criticised for that episode. Then there was the Kids Company statutory inquiry case where a judicial review was brought against the findings of that, and the Commission had to amend some of the findings. But again, the Commission was able to argue that the vast majority of its findings were upheld, and although that was a bit embarrassing, most of what they'd done held up to be true. So this is unprecedented, I would say, in terms of something the Commission has found itself facing.
Yes, and the report said, in short, a non-ministerial government has sought to prevent Parliament from receiving reports that criticise its behaviour. And it says, the regulator needs to take responsibility for this. As you say, Julia Unwin has offered a very full apology. And she said that the regulator, in hindsight, should not have persisted in challenging through the courts those reports being put in front of Parliament. But I wonder about this responsibility piece. Is there more that the regulator is going to have to do to make this right?
Well, the thing is, it won't end here, because the Privileges Committee report has to be accepted by the House of Commons. Now that won't happen. Obviously, Parliament is on recess at the moment and won't come back till September. But the House has to debate, probably, the report and haul the Commission over the coals again, probably, in the House of Commons before deciding whether they're going to accept the findings of the Privileges Committee. So that could be another embarrassing moment for the Commission as well.
Now, Emily, you secured an interview with one of the whistleblowers who has been at the very heart of this saga. You spoke to her before the report into the Commission's conduct had been published, but I would be really interested to hear from you. What did Lara Harle have to say about the regulator's behaviour?
Absolutely. And I think that speaking to Lara just prior to that report being published, it was just a very big reminder that there are people at the heart of this case. And I think that's something that is really important not to lose in our reporting of it. So when I spoke with Lara, we did it over a video call. She is living in Adelaide, Australia, and she has been back and forth to the UK in amongst this case rumbling on over the years. And she blew the whistle in 2019, so that was 7 years ago now. And perhaps unsurprisingly, for such a long rumbling case, one of the things that really struck me in speaking to her was how raw her hurt still is. When Lara blew the whistle, she had been a beneficiary and had been supported by the charity that she was reporting. And she alleged to the Commission that a then trustee at that charity had started an inappropriate relationship with her that was sexually exploitative and abusive. Now, that former trustee denies those claims. But as the Charity Commission was looking into her case, she began to feel institutionally betrayed by the Commission, an institution that she expected to protect her as a vulnerable individual. So Lara said that she was given unequivocal assurances, now that's the word she used when speaking with me, that the charity would be shut down and that her perpetrator would never act in the name of charity again. Now, I wrote a feature that you can see on Third Sector's website that goes into much more depth about how the Commission handled her case and what her experience was like. So if anyone's interested in a little bit more about the ins and outs of that, you can give it a read. But for now, I wanted to share some of Lara's reflections on the regulator's treatment of her as a whistleblower in her own words. One of the things I asked her was what she felt the largest failings were, and here's what she had to say.
But the largest failings were the contempt that they continued to show me, the failure to, at any point, course correct when it was so clear that they were in the wrong, and the defensiveness and the sheer lack of accountability, even to this day. This organisation is not fit for purpose, and this leaves the entire third sector incredibly vulnerable. And there are so many vulnerable people in that sector that rely on this sector. You know, it's a sector worth, £9 billion or something, with people that need a regulator that's checked in, not checked out, and that is alive to these issues and wants to protect the vulnerable.
So as I mentioned, when I spoke with Lara, it was via a video call. So apologies if the audio does sound a little jumpy at any points, but I think you can really hear in her voice there how much she believes in the change that she's trying to make and how important it is to her that no other whistleblower is experiencing what she went through.
And of course, she's not the only whistleblower who was involved in this case. She is one of two, but she won't be the only whistleblower who has approached the regulator over the past 7 years while this has been ongoing.
Yeah, because of course both her and Damien Murray, who's the other main complainant in this case, have both waived their right to anonymity because they wanted to speak out on the record about this case.
Mm-hmm. And Lara said that as a result of that, she's feeling very battle fatigued, but she's still very determined as well to continue to speak out and play her part as someone that can do that and is comfortable in doing so. But she also told me that these issues bleed well beyond her individual case, based on her discussions with other people who perhaps have not waived their right to anonymity, but who have experiences as whistleblowers to the Charity Commission.
I'm preaching to the choir at this point. When I walk into a room to give a talk about the Commission and the failings, I'm not getting anyone defending them. Contrary to that, I'm getting people that are giving me very compelling anecdotes and concerning anecdotes, which echo my concerns. And it's a chorus against the Commission and a desire for root and branch change, and for that change to be led, survivor-led and whistleblower, or at least for us to have a voice in that.
So as Andy said earlier, this is not the end of this story, this report. This case is going to go to Parliament. It's possibly going to be debated. We know, of course, that the regulator has made an apology, but it very much feels like we're not at the end of the line here. What does Lara feel needs to happen in order for the regulator to become fit for purpose when it comes to protecting vulnerable individuals who want to report wrongdoing to them?
So in Lara's view, it needs to be a complete overhaul of the people at the top and of the system. So let's have a listen to what she had to say.
They need to kind of start again at this point. It's our view, it's my view particularly, that they need to actually figure out, you need a root and branch change at this point. You need to actually go in there with someone independent and look at what it is that went so wrong and rebuild with an entirely different culture, a culture of accountability, a culture of transparency, of integrity, where they're proud to, do what is right.
So the Charity Commission has commissioned an independent judge-led review of both of the whistleblowing cases that were subject to the PHSO reports, and it recognises that there is that need for independent scrutiny. But beyond that, Emily, I wonder, does Lara have confidence that the overhaul that takes place is going to be sufficient enough to ensure that whistleblowers are being supported and protected in the future?
I asked her that exact question, and here was her response.
Not under the current management. I believe that with the support of my wonderful supporters who are ardent and determined, and we are a very determined bunch, we will push for that change. And it's really sad that it has to be us, particularly because I'm so battle fatigued. I don't think we will sleep until that happens, to be honest. But do I think the current management will be that change? Absolutely not. And we've seen that. It's going to be because of us. It's going to be a grassroots effort, as it always has been. I'm here for it. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, as you can appreciate. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going gentle into any good nights. And I look forward to the day that I can say that we do have a regulator that's fit for purpose. It's not today. I hope to live to see that day. So I'm not pessimistic. I'm optimistic. And that's why I continue to fight, but a lot needs to change. And, my asks need to be answered. Like I said, my perpetrator needs to be dealt with. An independent inquiry into this organisation needs to be commissioned. And those who caused this need to go. The leadership needs to go. And the entire board needs to go. And the culture needs to change from the bottom up. And then I will feel safe that the sector is being watched and that people who are in need of charity are being protected. And that is all I want.
Well, Lara there is calling for essentially a complete overhaul of the Commission. She wants everybody to go. Who knows whether that is likely to happen? I suspect not. But Andy, what do you think might need to happen in order to make people like Lara Hall feel safe again?
Well, there's no doubt that this whole episode puts significant pressure on the senior leaders at the Charity Commission. I mean, particularly David Holdsworth obviously has been singled out by this Privileges Committee report and has been told that what he's told the committee was untrue. It's very strong words saying that before Parliament. It definitely puts pressure on his position, I think. Dame Julia Unwin is obviously a slightly different case because she's only recently become chair of the regulator, and she only took up post in January. Pretty much everything had happened by that point when she came in. So I think it's probably slightly unfair for her to carry the can for what's happened up until this point. I would be very interested to be a fly on the wall when the next Charity Commission board meeting takes place, I think at the end of August. I mean, undoubtedly, you'd imagine they'd be talking about this and how they respond to it. Obviously, as we've said, they've apologised unreservedly. They've said, with the benefit of hindsight, that they shouldn't have brought these proceedings and they regret the fact that they did. But the fact is, they have very publicly been hauled over the coals, and this does diminish their authority as the sector's regulator.
So in a statement given for your article, Emily, the Charity Commission said that it acknowledged Lara Hall's distress and it recognised how let down she has felt. A spokesperson said, "We have accepted there were failings in the way in which we handled Lara Hall's complaints about a charity, and we have apologised. We recognise how important it is for Ms Hall, for the charity about which she complained, and indeed for the Commission itself, that our handling of this case is now scrutinised by an independent expert. That is why we've commissioned an independent judge-led review of both cases, subject to the PHSO reports." They said the work would help the regulator to continue to improve its processes for the benefits of future complainants and for more effective regulation of the sector. For now, we all just have to watch this space. I would, however, very much encourage everyone to go and read Emily's profile of Lara Hall and the reporting around this story, because it is a fascinating case in point for the charity sector and for its regulation. Moving on to more regulation and more big move stories. In the last editorial team meeting, we were bidding farewell to Keir Starmer's administration, and we were speculating about the Andy Burnham government and what that might bring for the world of charity. Well, Andy Burnham is now in power. And so we're going to briefly recap what the big moves have been for the charity sector in his first weeks in office. Andy, what do you make of the new administration?
Well, at this point, one thing we are still waiting for is to find out who's going to be the charities minister.
Yeah.
Which, as we record this on Wednesday lunchtime, undoubtedly the announcement will be made in about 10 minutes after we've finished recording this episode, and this will already be old news. But it looks like Stephanie Peacock's going to get the job again. She has been reappointed as a parliamentary undersecretary at the department, well, the now renamed Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. Lisa Nandy remains the culture secretary, so there's a lot of continuity there. But the individual responsibilities among the ministers within the department have not been assigned. Obviously, Stephanie Peacock had a very wide-ranging brief before, including tourism, sport, youth, loneliness. Yeah, she wasn't working on that alone. But there was lots of things in her in tray. Interestingly, Vicky Foxcroft, who has served as a shadow charities minister in opposition several years ago, has also been appointed as a parliamentary undersecretary into the department. So we don't know at this stage whether she might be given any sort of responsibility relating to the voluntary sector, because she's shown an interest in subjects around disability and other things relating to charities. So we still await really what is going to happen there. Undoubtedly, this will be old news by the time you're listening to this on Friday.
We have, however, seen one very big move into DCMS, and that has been the removal of the Office for the Impact Economy. It's been removed from Cabinet and it has been placed within DCMS's remit. And this is interesting because much was made of the Office for Impact Economy sitting at the heart of government when it was announced just last November. This is not an old department. But at the time, there was a lot of fanfare about the fact that it was in the cabinet. It wasn't in, one of the ministerial departments. It was being led by Darren Jones, who was the chief secretary to the Prime Minister at the time. And that felt significant, I think, for the people who have a stake in the impact economy. What does the Office for Impact Economy being moved really mean? I think there are mixed views in the sector about it at the moment. Some think of it as a downgrade. Julie Pybus, the original editor of Third Sector?
I believe so, yeah. The very first editor of Third Sector 35 years ago.
35 years ago, the very first editor of Third Sector wrote on LinkedIn, here we go again, she said, the ongoing wandering of social enterprise, the impact economy / mission-led business around the departments of the UK government. And others are saying, it sounds like a downgrade to me. But then there are some people who feel that it's an opportunity to align the Office for Impact Economy with that civil society brief to bring those areas of expertise together. So who really knows, I think, but they all feel like this is something that needs to be seized and it needs to be taken advantage of and it needs to be positioned as an opportunity, or the Office for Impact Economy risks, as Julie Piber said, this wandering around the ministerial departments and becoming less relevant and being moved further from that heart of departmental decision-making.
I think the interesting thing there is what will happen with the ministerial responsibility for it. Will somebody with not an enormous brief be given responsibility for looking after this Office of the Impact Economy? I definitely think there is something in the fact that it's been moved out of the Cabinet Office into the DCMS because, as you said, the Cabinet Office sits very much at the heart of government, not just metaphorically, but also physically. It's right next door to number 10. And they're obviously very closely linked in Whitehall. So moving it there, does it mean it's less important? We don't really know. But the reality is that DCMS, I think, is regarded as a bit more of a subsidiary department or maybe a more junior department than the Cabinet Office, obviously.
Andy Burnham is saying he's all about streamlining central government. However, this might just be part of his devolving power from the central offices move. He's talked a lot about devolving power to regional areas. Maybe he's going to devolve power to his ministerial departments and give them more powers to do the work at that local level. Maybe Vicky Foxcroft is going to be the new head of the impact economy. Who knows?
The fact that one of Andy Burnham's big priorities is devolution does suggest to me that perhaps this move is motivated by a bid to streamline responsibilities across government departments. And there is an opportunity here, in my view, of bringing the impact economy work in together with the work around the Civil Society Covenant. There's potential, with Lisa and Andy having been a big leader in that space on the Covenant work, to bring that together and hopefully amplify the impact and the money created and generated by the Office for the Impact Economy and the opportunities that gives, and make sure that that's all being done in line with the Covenant and its principles. So yes, I see why some are concerned about it being a deprioritisation, but I think, as you said, Emily, we can only see it as an opportunity.
And the flip side is of that it makes sense for a department that has something to do with philanthropy to be set close to the department that looks after charities. So you hope that makes ideological sense, bringing those two departments closer together.
So we'll be watching for these ministerial briefs as they emerge, and with any luck we're going to see more structure, more responsibility and greater power coming to the DCMS and the Office for Impact Economy. Fingers crossed. We'll check in with this again at the next editorial team meeting. Before we wrap up, we have one quick whistle-stop story which is currently playing out within the sector, and this is to do with charity banking. The Charity Finance Group recently reported that UK charities spend an estimated 12 million hours on banking administration each year. And there is one bank in particular which is causing a bit of a headache for some of its 14,000 customers at present. Emily, tell us the story.
So from Friday, we started hearing many murmurs of frustration from CAF Bank customers after its system was taken offline. The outage came after the bank identified suspicious activity on a small number of accounts and had to shut down the system to make changes to its service. In an email to customers, which Third Sector has seen, CAF Bank's Chief Executive, Alison Taylor, said that customers who had been affected by the attempted fraudulent activity had been contacted. So don't worry, if you've not been contacted, you're not at risk. And the money is safe and secure in accounts as well. But this has led to CAF Bank carrying out an investigation assisted by external experts, which found a previously unknown vulnerability in how some third-party software connects to its online banking portal. Now, why is this important? Well, CAF Bank serves more than 14,000 charities and social purpose enterprises, according to its website. So the entire system being down is a massive headache for those organisations, particularly at this time of the month. Charities are trying to pay their staff, their suppliers, and their bills, and they just cannot even see their activity. And while the bank has told customers who need to make urgent payments like payroll to call its helpline, charities have reported extremely long waiting times. One chief executive we spoke with, Aaron Guyver from Skylarks, was trying to complete payroll when the system was down, and he attempted to ring CAF Bank. He ended up stuck on hold for almost 5 hours on Monday, failing to get through before the bank stopped taking calls at 5 p.m. He attempted to ring back again at 9 a.m. early the next day, and after a further 2 hours, he was put to voicemail, only to be told the inbox was full.
It's really not ideal, and we're seeing many complaints on social media. I can see one chief executive on LinkedIn who is managing a charity which is currently winding down after 17 years. She's currently stuck at position number 62 in the queue and is saying, not only am I in the stressful position of having to close down my charity, I now cannot access any funds we have remaining to actually pay our staff. Real people involved in crises like this.
Absolutely. And the phone line queues just don't seem to be getting shorter. From monitoring the comments online, it just seems to be a continuing problem. And we know that there have been extra teams put on the phones at CAF Bank, but it seems to be that so many people at this time of the month are trying to complete payroll or pay suppliers, all this stuff, or managing a closing charity, that people are worried and are trying to get through on the phones, and there's just not enough people to answer them on the other end.
The difficulty as well for CAF Bank is that obviously this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. Just last year, it did an upgrade to its systems that resulted in charities being completely locked out of their accounts again and reporting very similar issues in terms of not being able to get through, not being able to get any help, and being stuck unable to make payments. So it is a very serious situation for the bank.
And we've heard from charity leaders and staff who are frustrated that they might be looking into moving banks now as a result of this continuous, as we say, repeated outages since that new system was introduced last year. The lack of available help when an outage occurs seems to be a continuous frustration.
It's also a massive drain on time and capacity for small charities who really need this infrastructure to keep running, not just in the sense that they can't do vital administration work, but who has the time when you're a charity chief executive to be spending 5 hours on the phone trying to get through to someone so that you can complete payroll?
But especially for small charities who have very few staff, this is a really serious issue. And not only does it mean being unable to pay your staff, who of course rely on that paycheck, and that's, can be incredibly, inconvenient and stressful as an individual waiting on your paycheck, but it also means charities can't pay their suppliers. So Aaron from Skylarks told me that this could be potentially damaging to his charity's reputation, because if they can't pay suppliers, those suppliers may pull out due to late payments, and Skylarks has a lot of suppliers that are due to provide some respite care over the summer months. And if those suppliers pull out due to late payments, the charity will need to cancel its upcoming respite services that families are relying on, and that impacts real people and also has real impacts for the charity as an organisation and its reputation.
And so is there any sign of this being resolved as of yet?
So at present, the outage is rumbling on until further notice. Alison Taylor from CAF Bank has apologised for the disruption and said the bank is working to fix the third-party software issue. She said, "We are acutely aware of the impact this has had on our customers, and we want this to be fixed as soon as possible, but we cannot restore access to the online service until we are assured that the issue is safely resolved." And in relation to wait times, she said the bank has put extra teams on its phones, but it needs to prioritise time-sensitive payments such as payroll, and she did note that there are much higher call volumes than usual.
Well, I just wonder how many of those 12 million hours that the CFG found that charities spend on banking admin relate to being on hold to CAF Bank.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Next week, we'll be hearing from Tanya Curry, Chief Executive of the MND Association, on how to strategically plan for your organisation when everything feels urgent. But for now, from all of us at Third Sector, thank you for listening. Our producer is Nav Powell.